Hi, I'm Megan.
And I'm Yvette.
And this is AOI.
And we're going to be talking to you about The Age of Innocence, the book.
So let's start with a pretty good summary of the book.
Good way to start.
Okay. The Age of Innocence is a personal journey which is centered on Newland Archer. Before announcing his engagement, Newland accepts the judgments and tastes of his social group. He recognizes the pettiness of it, but also enjoys its stability and predictability. After the engagement, he sees the flaws. He watches how they judge Ellen Olenska and then force her to live a constrained life due to her horrible ex-husband.
As he starts to question his social life, he becomes attached to Ellen. He imagined a bigger, better world with her. His journey is slowed when he married May. After marriage, he must learn to accept his life with May and separate from Ellen. He tries to imagine a way out, but accepts his choice in the end. He removes his contentment with old New York society and finds a way to reform it from within. He remains true to his wife and becomes a good citizen and father.
Sounds like a great book.
It does. It wasn't boring at all.
Nope.
No.
Okay, now that we've talked about the summary, let's go into what we're really here for.
Characters.
We're going to talk about all the gossip and news about some of the characters from Age of Innocence.
So, Megan, why don't you start us off with Lemuel Struthers?
Sure. She's one of the least mentioned characters in this book.
Yes, we
So, although as heir to a shoe polish fortune, she's considered common. I mean, I'm sure she gets lots of money from that.
Yeah, people
Right.
shoes all the time back then.
Obviously. So she becomes a popular hostess and is known for her artistic gatherings.
What do you think artistic gatherings means, Megan?
I have no idea.
Paint?
Maybe?
Interesting.
So why don't you talk about our next one, Sillerton Jackson.
Well, Sullivan Jackson is an elderly man and is good friends to the Archer family, which we'll talk about eventually. He's an unofficial archivist of all New York gossip and history. That's basically what we got all about him, which isn't really much. So, Megan, why don't you just move us along with Medora Manson?
Sure. She's an eccentric old aunt of Ellen, who we'll talk about later.
We're going from least to popular character.
Because nobody wants to hear about these people. She raised Ellen after her parents died.
It's really sad.
That was so sad. Penniless and Tarrant, she is repeatedly widowed and is tolerated by society because of family connections.
Which I don't think is really fair. It's not human for family connections.
Nobody likes her, I guess.
It's not really fair.
So let's move on with Ned Winsett.
Well, he is a Bohemian journalist friend of Archer. We've never talked about him yet. And one of the few people with whom he can talk to, which was
That's
talk to
really
Archer.
sad.
Many people you can't really trust back then. Archer sees him as an emblem of social freedom and its immense cost. I think he's a really good person then if Archer says that. Which is political smell. So, Megan, why don't you talk about Lawrence Lefferts?
Sure. He's widely considered to be the arbiter of good taste and values. So pretty much everyone looks up to him.
I don't believe he knew who he really was.
I don't know. He is also a huge gossip and an unfaithful husband.
See, I told you. Can't really trust the guys who act good.
There are also suspicions that he courted Ellen but was rejected. I mean, why would he betray that?
I don't know.
She's a lovely young lady.
She rejected him.
Okay.
Got that.
Why don't you talk about Mrs. Archer and Janie Archer?
Of course I will, Megan. Of course, Miss Archer is a mother of Newland Archer, and Janie Archer is his sister. And basically, they act like sisters, which is really good, because nowadays you can't get that with your mother.
That mother-daughter relationship.
Yes. But they're both somewhat socially timid. They love to gossip, grow friends, and make lace, which I think is very interesting.
Very rounded personalities they
Yeah.
have.
While they are devoted to Archer, they are nonetheless frequently shocked by his social views. Which who wouldn't be?
New and special. So Yvette, why don't you talk about Henry and Louisa Vanderloo?
I'd love to. They are descendants of pre-revolutionary Dutch aristocracy. They're an elderly couple, and they are the last word of social authority.
Wow.
Yeah. They're last in a line. They're at last in a long line of powerful social leaders, but they're very quiet and non-adventurous.
Well, they're old.
Can't really blame them. But they rarely sit in public and rarely invite people to the Madison Avenue mansion.
I wouldn't
Must be
either.
really rich.
I'll keep that all to myself.
Yeah. So, Megan, why don't you talk about Miss Manson Mignot? Mignot. You pronounce her name.
Mrs. Manson Mingot.
Megan, why don't you introduce us, Miss Manson Mignot? Yeah.
Mrs. Manson Mingot.
Mingot! Megan, why don't you talk about Miss Manson Mingot?
I will. We're starting to get into the characters that are more talked about in
Yes.
this book. So, Mrs. Mingot is grandmother of May and Ellen, and we're about to talk about them.
She
She
talk
is
about them first.
probably.
It's too late now.
She's a fat and fiery old aristocrat lady.
Hmm.
Sounds amazing.
Gosh.
She holds a great influence over the New York clan, so she has a lot of power. She has moral standards that are irreproachable, but she has some unorthodox social views.
So basically, people don't like her very much.
No, not at all. She insists on family solidarity and remains confident in Ellen, and we'll talk about why when we get to Ellen. But she supports her financially when she eventually returns to Europe.
Good place here.
It's a wonderful place.
Good place to stay.
Yep, we did. Okay, so why don't you talk about May Welland?
I will. And she's the one who marries Archer, by the way. She is really innocent. Archer sees her as a living embodiment of New York society. I don't know what that means, really.
She must be pretty amazing.
She probably does. She's incapable of thinking on her own and acts as she is expected. So basically,
She's boring.
you could put it like that. Despite innocent, she is not as naive as Newland expects her.
And we found out because she does some tricky business with certain people.
Which we'll talk about in a minute. But she still remains a loyal wife after she suspects Newland and with the Newland. She remains a loyal wife after she suspects Newland of having an affair with Ellen. Shocker. But she drove Ellen away by telling her about a pregnancy that
It was real, but she wasn't sure about it.
She got lucky, let's put it at that. And basically she told her that she loves Archer, which is, I think is true.
Yep, she really does.
So, Megan, why are you talking to us about Ellen Olenska?
Okay, well, she is Countess Ellen Olenska.
Not bad,
Get it
not bad.
right. And she's May's cousin and Mrs. Manson Mingot's granddaughter. So everybody's related in some way.
Drama.
She was educated in Europe, awesome, but she married a Polish count who cheated on her and then prompted her to leave him.
Which is very rude.
I mean, why? Why?
I don't know.
When she returned to her New York family, she hoped to reintegrate to American life, but only finds judgmentality and remorse.
Just shows you how mean people are.
It just doesn't make sense. Her behavior was seen as too unorthodox for her to fit in to old New York. However, to Archer, she is free and alive, her own person. So why don't we talk about Newland Archer, who is the main character of The Age of Innocence?
And causes all this drama within the family. Well, Newland is a protagonist, wealthy young lawyer who is going to marry May, which we already know that.
Yep.
But sadly, he loves May's cousin Ellen. He thinks that she is a freedom that's missing from the New York sepulchre.
A what?
She is the freedom from the suffocating environment in New York. Archer is torn between May and Ellen, which is really sad. Because he wants to stay loyal to May, but he has passion for Ellen, which is...
But wouldn't, she's from Europe. May's boring. I mean, they're beautiful, but, I mean, you gotta go for Ellen.
Well, I don't know. He stays loyal to his wife, which is awesome. You don't find guys like that anymore. And he comes to be known to society as a philanthropist and a civic figure, which is pretty cool. He's loyal, a young lawyer, because of all this drama.
I mean, he's perfect on paper, but because of his devils inside of him,
Passion for Ellen.
he couldn't control himself. But in the end, he came out as the perfect father figure and just an amazing husband.
Yeah, according to May.
According to me, of course. She ended up dying,
Sadly.
but, I mean,
So does everybody eventually.
yeah, it's normal. So anyways, I hoped everyone enjoyed our little TMZ inspired video.
I hope it made you want to read the book.
It really is,
Pretty
it's
great.
a book. It's a book.
Let's put it at that.
Yeah,
It's kind of interesting at sometimes.
maybe, but it's still just a book.
As are all books.